How do you expect the industry to perform these next few months, knowing that the market right now is extremely volatile and more people are leaning towards commodities and just, let's face it, looking for yield? Hey everyone, welcome to our latest Trade Black podcast. We are talking commodities today, and more specifically, uranium. And could we see one company in particular begin drilling soon? Well, let's find out and welcome a familiar face back to the podcast. He's the president and CEO of Atomic Minerals, which trades on the TSX Venture. Clive Massey back. It's been a while, but good to see you again.
Well, thank you very much for having me, Sean, and it's nice to see you as well. Always good to chat with you.
Yeah, exactly. You out in BC, is it?
Out in sunny Vancouver.
How is it this time of year?
Well,
a lot of sun?
It's sunny and warm, and we're having an unusually long spell of sunshine, which people around here are relieved because we'd rather have sun than rain anytime.
Yeah, exactly. God's country, I'd like to describe that area when it's sunny out, that's for sure. But let's dive in. As I said off the top, the uranium industry, and explore why investors should be paying attention. So just to kind of give a recap, recent years, the sector has experienced significant growth and presents unique opportunities for those seeking to, diversify their investment portfolios. Includes advancements in nuclear energy to increasing global demand. So maybe describe to us Atomic Minerals and why investors should be paying attention, especially here in the near term.
Well, I formed the company a number of years ago as a result of seeing what I thought would be a rising uranium price. Previously, in the last uranium bull cycle, uranium reached $140. It's currently trading at $57. There are 450 nuclear power plants on the globe, which are either in the planning phase, the permitting phase, or the construction phase. There's a 60 million pound shortfall at the moment between production and demand. And with 450 plants in the works, it's only a matter of time until the price takes off. And when it does, it usually moves very, very quickly. So for that reason, we're focusing on uranium exploration.
Why is it such a shortfall right now?
Well, there's been a number of things which have happened in the nuclear sector over the last few years. And of course, the Fukushima meltdown shed a very negative light on uranium. That has now fallen by the wayside. The need to fulfill the growing demand for electricity with the continuing adoption rates of electric cars. For example, the United States globally, we use 17 terawatts of power. If we're to meet the 2050 schedules for powering electric cars, we're going to have 75 terawatts. So that power's got to come from somewhere. Wind, solar have issues with scale. They also require fossil fuels to be built and designed. And uranium, as we see, is the only sensible, clean alternative.
That is right there. I guess the unique selling point is the push for electric vehicles. And where does that power all come from? I was reading actually as recent as a couple of years ago that 11% of global electricity production is actually created from uranium. And to your point, with the push, obviously, from all these manufacturing companies and government mandates for electric vehicles, that's going to grow substantially, and it'll grow fast.
Precisely. And this is exactly why the U.S. has recently made an announcement that they would like to secure 4.5 billion pounds of domestic supply. They also announced last week they are no longer buying uranium from Russia, or Kazakhstan, which, by the way, Kazakhstan supplied 40% of the world's uranium. So this is going to drive the price higher. And as a matter of fact, the price actually did react last week. It went up about $7.
Yeah. So as we dive into company details, as you mentioned, you've listed a few drilling sites. One you've listed actually is 6 current mining projects on the website, with the Harts Point uranium project taking center stage in your news flow in recent times. So maybe describe to my viewers what that project means and why it's taking center stage.
Harts Point is It's a joint venture with a company called Kraken Energy. Kraken
Okay.
can earn a 75% interest by spending roughly $3.8 million and issuing us 2 million shares over a period of 18 months. What makes this project so attractive is that it's a salt wash anticline. It's located on the Colorado Plateau. The
Okay.
Colorado Plateau has previously produced 328 million pounds. The only salt wash anticline on the Colorado Plateau, which has had any exploration whatsoever at all, is the Lisbon Valley anticline, which produced 82 million pounds from 17 large uranium mines. The interesting point about salt wash anticlines is they're also ideal environments for the deposition of oil and gas. So we have examined a whole host of oil and gas drill holes that have been drilled in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, looking for oil and gas on these salt wash anticlines. And what they have revealed is that there are a number of drill holes that have intersected uraniferous sandstone units. And at
Okay.
Harts Point, the uraniferous sandstone unit that's been intersected is identical to that of Lisbon Valley, which again produced 80
Wow.
million pounds of uranium. So we're permitted, we will be permitted by the time this interview comes out, we'll be permitted for 20 holes. We expect to be on the ground next week and should have results fairly shortly. Uranium results are produced much more quickly than any other number of drilling campaigns.
I want to elaborate on that because, like, unlike other commodities, there's no labs needed for uranium. You basically drill on the spot. Why is that important for investors to understand?
Well, first of all, you do eventually need to have the core analyzed, but you can identify the host mineral uraninite very, very easily. It almost looks like a broken piece of asphalt. We also do what's called a downhole probe with a scintillometer, which picks up the gamma rays. And we do know by looking at these 3 existing holes that we have on our property that the gamma ray kicks are above 700, which is right off the scale. So the advantage is that once the drilling's concluded, we'll know instantaneously. And if the results are positive, I believe, this could have an instantaneous effect on our share price.
Wow, which is huge, obviously, of this industry, because as you can probably imagine, investors today want things to move like yesterday. But when do you, I guess, circling back, you anticipate drilling to start immediately?
Well, I'm just waiting on a final date, and I'm hoping I'm going to receive that today, but it should be next week.
Okay.
I would anticipate the 8th, 10th, somewhere in that time frame.
Well, as you alluded to before, we've seen some prices take some big jumps recently. I look back at the run in 2021 and the first half of 2022. We've seen some growth, obviously, this year as well. How do you expect, the industry to perform these next few months, knowing that the market right now is extremely volatile and more people are leaning towards commodities and just, let's face it, looking for yield?
Well, I think that, everybody I speak to feels that we're at the bottom of what could very likely be a super cycle. And if you look at how the NASDAQ is performing today, for example, it's on track to close at an all-time high. So I think while there's a high degree of uncertainty in the broad markets, in the mineral resource sector, I think there's a lot more confidence and people recognize where the shortfalls are. Copper, for example, if we're to meet copper demand, sorry to derail this, for electric cars by 2030, we're going to have to discover 3 times the amount of copper that we've produced in the last 3,000 years. And
wow,
as I mentioned earlier, with 450 nuclear power plants, and a number of countries have also announced recently that they're going to adopt nuclear power again, France, Germany, and Holland. We're going to have to get it from somewhere. And hopefully, Shad, it's going to come from our properties.
So 40% of uranium from the Americans was from Kazakhstan, you said, or the Ukraine?
40% of world supply was from Kazakhstan.
Wow.
A combination of Kazakhstan and the Ukraine.
It's just because of the war, I assume, that's taken place over there as to how people are shifting?
Right. And then the U.S. government has also said they're not interested in essentially putting money in their enemy's pocket.
Well, of course, right? Well, when I look at, you touched on how if drilling could begin relatively soon and what this could do in the short term for your share price. I look at some of these junior uranium explorers in recent times, and F3 Uranium Corp comes to mind, which shot up sevenfold late last year, really moved quickly. So if you begin drilling, do you think this becomes, I guess, one of the most talked about stories within uranium?
I think it certainly could be. The other thing is that the method of drilling that we're using is rotary drilling. So the holes
Okay.
themselves can be drilled very, very quickly. And further to your question, I previously was the CEO of a uranium company called Universal Uranium. And we were the only company that made a new discovery in that last bull cycle. I got on a plane that morning. The stock was trading, just as an example, at 25 cents. When I got off the plane, the stock had traded 9 million shares and was 275.
That must have been nice, right?
That was very nice. So, granted, the uranium price was a lot stronger at that time, but it's only a matter of time until
Yeah.
this price takes off. And when it does, the last time it took off like an elastic band, like a
Wow.
broken elastic band. And it's going to
So,
do the same thing again. I believe that very strongly.
yeah, I was going to say you got to be careful with what you can and can't promise as a CEO of a publicly traded companies. But you think that based on the lows of this industry right now and what's in front of you, I don't want to give any share prices, but you think there is those kinds of growth opportunities that could happen.
I think there's all kinds of upside opportunity. And let's not forget that just in terms of the cyclical side of the industry in general,
Yeah.
from a seasonal standpoint, we're at the point where stocks are generally at their lowest anyway.
Yeah.
So,
It's across the board.
yeah, it's across the board. But I think the things that are going to perform really well in this order are uranium, copper, and lithium, and potash. I think is going to be in there as well.
What would you say is the biggest misconception for people that understand uranium?
Well, I think the biggest misconception is that it's dangerous. And it's not. So, for example, 3 Mile Island was a let off. They accidentally released some radioactive steam, non event.
Yeah.
Chernobyl, the reactor exploded. Had those engineers read the manual, they would have known you dewater a core, it explodes. So that was just man-made stupidity. Fukushima, who builds a nuclear reactor next to tidewater? That was goofy to start with.
Why?
And
Explain that.
who could anticipate a tidal wave caused by an earthquake? So that's
Yeah.
3 accidents. In the fossil fuels industry, when you just take a drill site in general, there are
Yeah.
accidents every single day, whether they're
Mm.
oil spills from tankers, accidents on drill rigs. The uranium sector as a whole is a much safer way in every respect to satisfy the worldwide need for power.
Yeah. Well, the biggest thing that I gather here is just, you said, we're at, I don't even want to say 52-week lows. Like, it's across the board in any industry that we're covering right now. We talk about, what companies and what spaces, when this market turns for the better, what to look for. Obviously can't have your hands dabbled in everything, but the big takeaway I get from this conversation is the fact that governments are mandating just the opportunity for electric vehicles, and where's that going to come from, right?
Yeah, where's that power going to come from? I mean, for example, last September when I was in California, Gavin Newsom was asking people not to plug in their electric cars or their other electric devices because it was so hot, everybody had their air conditioners on. So, there's already a gigantic shortfall on the electrical grid.
Canada, carbon tax coming, right?
Yep.
That's for sure. So, last question I want to ask, because I think a lot of people would like to know, what separates your company from, say, other competitors in the space?
Well, I think there are a couple of things. Our team is highly seasoned. We're very heavy on the technical side. We have 5 geologists who are all either in their latter 60s or early 70s, have worked in this type of geological environment since they graduated from the Mackey School of Mines in Nevada. Almost all of them attended the Mackey School of Mines during the during the same time. So they've got very long and strong relationships with one another. They've been studying the geology of these saltwash anticlines since the 1970s. So they're highly, highly experienced
Gotcha.
in this specific geologic environment.
How's the company set up structurally, like outstanding shares that are available right
Oh,
now?
I'm glad you asked that. We currently have 62 million shares out. We've got 36 million warrants, which we've only done one financing to date. And those 36 million warrants are from that financing. And we have 3.1 million options. And so fully diluted, we're just a little over 98 million shares, I think.
So good share structure.
Good share structure. Management, insiders, and friends of the company own about 25% at the present time.
Okay.
The other thing I should mention is one of the members of our technical team, it was in fact his father on July 6th, 1951, discovered the Mavita uranium mine on the Lisbon Valley anticline, which at the time of its discovery was the highest grade, had the highest grade and the thickest mineable widths of any uranium mines ever being discovered. And that led to the subsequent discovery of 16 other uranium mines in the area.
Wow.
And his son, Mark Steen, is part of our technical team. So it was in fact Mark that identified, these other geological structures as being identical to that of Lisbon Valley.
Those geological structures, can you give maybe an example or two as to what kind of investment opportunity that presented?
Well, the nice thing from an economical standpoint for us is that all of these saltwash anticlines were open. In other words, nobody had any claims on them. So we were able to obtain them for staking costs. So our entry level into these opportunities has been very low. And we currently have 3 saltwash anticlines staked. We have the Harts Point. We also have the 10-mile anticline. We also have the Dolores anticline. And the other thing that makes all of these anticlines interesting from a potential production standpoint is that the White Mesa uranium mill, which is the only uranium mill currently operating in the United States, is, depending on which saltwash anticline you're at, is 75 miles, 45 miles, or 35 miles from the White Mesa uranium mill, which incidentally is struggling to stay open as a result of not having enough feed. So if we're successful in making a discovery at any one of these saltwash anticlines, we've got a milling facility very close by, which again makes the economics very attractive.
Was this a highly sought after location amongst other companies as well?
Well, it hasn't been, because this is a geological model which has really been overlooked. And that's why.
Because of the oil and gas originally?
Well, not necessarily, but because of the oil and gas. But if you think of it this way, Shad, for years, people have been looking for copper, gold, and silver. And so there have been all kinds of exploration cycles. In the uranium space, there's really only been arguably 3 cycles, one in the 1950s, one in the 1970s and 80s, and the last one, which took place in essentially 2004 to 2008. So it hasn't seen the same sort of investment that other mineral sectors have seen. And so as a result, these opportunities have been overlooked and underexplored.
Lithium, silver, copper at the forefront. That is the new trend in this industry. You don't get a lot of conversation pertaining to uranium, but the most important thing I gather is just, like I said, there's 11% of the global electricity is through uranium right now, and you think that'll grow substantially in the coming years to a lot of the points that you alluded to, right?
Well, like I said, with 450 plants, either in the permitting, construction, or planning phase, it's only a matter of time. We're going to have a huge run in the uranium price, I think.
Oh, that's exciting.
And a lot of others do as well. The forecast price is north of $200.
Wow. What's it at right now?
Possibly in the next 18 to 24 months.
And what's it at right now?
$57.
57. That's a 4Xer. Well, let's get that drilling right away, and then you and I could do some fly fishing up in Vancouver in the summertime this time next year. How's that sound?
Great, Chad.
Appreciate you checking in. But this is a good story, to say the least. And I think the most important thing, too, is especially in today's day and age for today's investor. This is an industry that moves a little slow, but here's a project that moves and could move fast, which I think should grab some attention. But listen, best of luck. Thanks for checking in. And more importantly, let's keep in touch.
Thanks very much, Shad. Always nice talking to you, and thanks for having me today.
You as well. Thanks, Clive.
Thanks.
What's up, everyone? So what'd you think of the interview? Are there any more questions you want us to ask that you want to learn more of? Then leave a comment below and let us know what you think. As usual, share this video with your network, smash that like button, and most importantly, subscribe to our channel because we would not be here without you. Thanks for watching, everyone.